I'm Teresa Bailey, host of In the Money. On today's show, we're talking about the important aspects to consider when choosing a financial advisor for you and your family. During a U.S. News interview back in August, Kevin Keller, CEO of the Certified Financial Planner Board of Standards, noted that just about anybody can call themselves a financial planner or financial advisor. And he warned that it really is a buyer beware situation when a person is looking for an advisor. Keller went on to point out that not all credentials should be weighted equally. With over 180 professional financial designations listed on the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, or FINRA, website, he noted that some could be achieved with a weekend exam. There are also other factors to consider in addition to education. According to a New York Post article published earlier this year, in a study commissioned by Guidevine, only 13% of 1,000 consumer participants had committed to a 5-year plan for their finances. In addition to navigating the world of professional credentials in our advisors, we must also find comfort with a professional that can inspire the self-discipline required to change behavior, as well as to be open about our current situation. Joining us today is Joseph Wilder, a certified financial planner professional and founder of Inceptum LLC. Joseph is going to share with us his thoughts on items to consider or questions to ask when you are choosing the right professional to deliver financial advice. Stay tuned as we sit down to chat with Joseph Wilder.
You are watching Germantown Municipal Television, your source for everything Germantown.
Today we're discussing how to choose the right financial advisor to deliver financial advice to your family. Joining us is certified financial planner professional, Joseph Wilder. Well, thank you for joining us today, Joseph.
Glad to be here.
Before we begin, tell us a little bit about you and what you do every day.
I'm a certified financial planner professional. I meet with clients and I put together a financial plan for their financial future. I help them with their investments. I happen to also help them with their insurance, and sometimes that's college planning. It's different things for different folks.
And how long have you been in Memphis or Germantown or the surrounding area?
I have been in the surrounding area for 22 years, 16 of those as a financial planner.
Got it, so you're probably going to stick around for a little while.
Probably not leaving.
And then Inceptum LLC, all the services Inceptum provides. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I'm glad you asked. Inceptum is a Latin word, by the way, that means beginning. And the services, we're a financial planning firm. We provide independent investment advice, independent insurance advice.
All right, so I'm glad that you brought up the whole independent. A lot of what we're going to talk about today is the alphabet soup of selecting a financial advisor.
Okay.
So you're also a certified financial planner professional, and that has to be said, I understand, in a very specific way. So tell us about why you chose the CFP mark over all the other hundreds of designations you could have chosen.
So I was in the business several years before I got the CFP, and I thought it was the premier designation for financial planning. I always gravitated to financial planning, and it was the mark that I always sought.
And how did you know whether you would go for the CFP or some other financial planning designation, just that it was promoted as the highest and the education requirements maybe were more?
That's a good question. I felt like it was the premier designation. Others in the industry that I respected had that designation, and that's why I chose it too.
And tell me a little bit about the education that you go through to become a CFP. What all subject matter does it cover?
So the case or the class that I went through had insurance and financial planning, it had investments, it had retirement plans, it had taxes, it had estate planning and group benefits, Those were the course headings that I had to go through. Other requirements included an exam, a comprehensive exam. There was a education requirement as far as a bachelor's degree was required, and 3 years of experience.
So 3 years, wow. So all in, how long did it take you to study for, complete all of the requirements for this designation?
So I had many more years experience than 3 because I didn't get it right at the beginning, but when I started the CFP program, it took me 2 years. That's not because I was doing it exclusively. I was working full time, and so I was spending time on it and then focusing on cases and then spending time on it when I could. But it took me a full 2 years to complete.
Now you have other doodads after your name other than CFP. What are those?
AIF stands for Accredited Investment Fiduciary, another buzzword in our industry. CLTC stands for Certified in Long-Term Care. Long-term care is a growing area of need.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about the time involved in those two designations in comparison to the CFP.
Yeah, those are quite different. AIF took, there was an education component, but not near as in depth as the CFP was. And there was an exam. CLT, same. There was a short education component and an exam. These were acquired in a matter of days, so they're
Very different. So someone who maybe doesn't understand the difference could see that you have 3 doodads after your name, as I call them doodads, and assume that the time input to get each was the same, but in fact, as you say, very, very different.
Quite different. The reason I list the CFP first behind my name is because I think of it as the premier designation in the industry, and it's certainly the one that took me the most to get.
And then ongoing, now that you've completed it and you have it, what do you have to do each year, every few years to maintain the designation?
So we have 30 hours of continuing education every 2 years, plus 2 hours of ethics, and we have to pay a renewal fee. We have to keep certain ethics requirements, meet a professionalism standard. I think that's it.
A lot that goes into it, though.
There is.
So you mentioned that the test covered retirement planning and taxes and estate planning. So did that qualify you to be an expert in all of those areas?
So I feel a little bit humbled. I'm hesitant to say I'm an expert in every one of those areas, but certainly the CFP educates you in those areas, and I would humbly say, yes, I think you can, relative to other advisors, you certainly have more expertise in those areas after getting the CFP designation.
Now, it doesn't qualify you to do, say, an estate planning document, correct? You know about estate planning, but you don't actually produce the document.
That's exactly right. I cannot practice law. I cannot write legal documents. We have to leave that up to attorneys.
You need another doodad for that.
I would need another doodad for that, for sure.
Got it. So would you say then that CFP gave you enough knowledge to work with other financial advisors in a client's life and know how to navigate and pull everyone together?
Certainly. So as a CFP professional, we may often work with attorneys or CPAs, attorneys on coordinating documents, seeking their legal input, accountants, CPAs for tax input and tax documents.
Well, we're definitely going to get back to a lot more on that when we return. We'll have to take a short break, and we'll be back in a moment with Joseph. Stay with us.
Of all the things you've done with your bike, donating it to Goodwill may be the most incredible of all. Your donations help fund job placement and training for people in your community, which means your stuff can be more powerful than you think. Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs.
So there you are, shuffling through a stack of resumes, and you come to mine. This is it. First impression. My way in. But can my resume show you how I truly stand out? Like that I was studying, going to night school while working 2 jobs just to help my parents pay for groceries. Or being the first one to always step up. No, that's something you just can't put on paper. Look beyond the resume and discover new ways to develop great talent that is dedicated, hardworking, and determined like me.
You are watching Germantown Municipal Television, your source for everything Germantown.
Welcome back to In the Money. If you're just joining us, we're talking about choosing a financial advisor for your family. Today, we're joined by financial planner Joseph Wilder with Inceptum LLC. So, Joseph, thanks again for joining us today. I know it's end of year, so it must be very busy for you.
I'm glad to be here.
Oh, thank you. So when we left off, we were talking about working with other financial advisors and how maybe the CFP best positions you for that. So tell us a little bit about how you work with a client and you bring in other advisors that are involved in their life.
So when building a financial plan, I often think of myself in the planning process as a coach, and in the implementation process of the financial plan as a quarterback. We may hand the ball off to a CPA, for example.
So pause real quick. I don't mean to interrupt you. So in one aspect, you're a coach, and in another, you're a quarterback. So talk to us a little bit about the coach very quickly to sort of outline that with the client.
So I think the coach part as building the roadmap, the financial plan or the retirement plan, as it were. The coach may lay out the plan. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think a financial planner can do when building a financial plan is lay out the plan with the client's help, lay out the plan, and then the quarterback would be, in my opinion, the one who helps implement the plan. Maybe you hand the ball off to an attorney to draw up some estate planning documents or a CPA to get tax advice about the suggestions that you're giving.
Now, are you often involved in the selection of the attorney or the accountant?
I am often involved in the selection. Often folks will ask if you know somebody, and so usually I'll give 2 or 3 names of attorneys, for example, that I know and have worked with in the past, and let the client meet with them and just see who they feel comfortable with.
Now, for those folks out there who may not already have an accountant or may not work with someone like you, what are the things that you look for when you're selecting an accountant to go on your one of 3 names?
So I look for someone that I've worked with, and I'm comfortable with them. Certainly they are qualified to give such advice. That's a given. Mm-hmm. But someone that I'm comfortable with and I think the client is going to work well with, the personalities will mesh. Those are the types of things that I'm considering.
Now, what qualifications on the tax side do you look for? What doodads after their name, I should say?
Thank you for guiding me. A CPA is certified public accountant is what I'm looking for in that case.
And why are you looking for a CPA?
Much like a CFP, it shows that they have the qualifications. It shows that they have some education, and so much like the CFP, it demonstrates some expertise in that area.
And how would you counsel a client to expect to pay for services of a CPA?
So there's different ways that you could do that. Some would charge hourly. Some might charge a fee to handle a certain issue. Most that I've dealt with in that kind of case are going to work hourly.
Okay. And then on the estate planning side, what types of professionals are you bringing in to throw the ball to on the estate plan side?
So doing an estate plan, I'm working often with the attorney, and so they would charge hourly. Sometimes they'll charge a flat fee to do a certain type of estate planning document too.
And what qualifications are you looking for the estate side?
A JD, a Juris Doctor, certainly to demonstrate that they're an attorney. Sometimes we might use someone that has an LLM. There are different designations that attorneys can have. It depends on the situation that we're looking for.
And what about general areas of practice? Do you look for somebody who specifically works with estates, or can somebody use an attorney who sort of works in several different areas? What's your preference?
I think that's a good question. So attorneys can specialize in different areas of practice, and so certainly I wouldn't want a real estate type closing attorney to handle an estate plan. So we'd absolutely work with someone who focuses in the estate planning area.
And so we've talked about now tax preparation and estate planning, and those two things usually go in hand. Do you find that the estate planning attorney and the accountant have to talk to each other as well, and do you facilitate that?
I do find that the accountant and estate planning attorney need to talk to each other, and sometimes they do, and sometimes they need a liaison. And so I find that the certified financial planner professional is important in that process to help communicate the tax side.
So a coach, we've got a quarterback, we've got a liaison, so you're wearing many hats.
That's true. And sometimes that's exactly what it takes.
Now, one other hat would be strategizing and providing insurance. Talk to us a little bit about that and the role that you play.
So the insurance agent might be needed to provide some insurance. Estate liquidity, things like that, sometimes you'll need some insurance to help do that. In my case, I'm a little bit unique in that I'm a financial planner that also can provide insurance, and so I don't usually sub out that role. I usually take care of that. That's the quarterback part.
When you say sub out, sometimes other financial planners bring in other insurance agents, but you're saying you can do the analysis as well as provide the insurance product.
That's correct.
And so are you paid differently when you're in that role? How does that change the relationship with the client for you?
That's a good point. I am paid differently in that role. So in the time that you're building the financial plan, I charge a fee to build a financial plan. If I'm implementing a certain part of the financial plan, such as the insurance, then the insurance company would compensate me with a commission, is usually what it's referred to.
Now, are you able to provide one company's insurance product or multiple companies' insurance products? And how do we tell the difference between the two?
That's a good question. Different representatives or agents may work differently. So I happen to be an independent, which means that I can work with many different companies. There are insurance agents that are employees of an insurance company, and so naturally that's who they use.
All right, so you're able to look among various companies and make a selection, but other individuals who deliver insurance products cannot do that. They must sell the person they work for.
That's correct.
Firm they work for.
That's correct.
All right, more on that in just a minute. We have to take another short break. We'll be right back with Joseph.
Taking care of a family member can lead to plenty of questions. Fortunately, there's a place to get the answers, for them and for you. Find articles, tips, and tools from experts and others who have been in your place. The Caregiving Resource Center at aarp.org/caregiving.
We'd do anything for kids. Yet 1 in 6 children in the U.S. struggle with hunger. Help end childhood hunger near you. Learn how at feedingamerica.org.
You are watching Germantown Municipal Television, your source for everything Germantown.
Welcome back to In the Money. We're talking through tips for choosing a financial professional for you and your family. So we're back with Joseph. Thanks again. As I mentioned earlier, it's end of year, so this is a tough time for you to, I know, be here, but thank you. When we left off, we were talking about insurance and how you're able to plan as well as provide. Another confusing area, I feel, because sometimes it's confusing between us professionals, is the difference between being paid for giving an advice, investment advisor, and being what's traditionally called a stockbroker. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between the two?
Yeah, so an investment advisor is someone that can give advice about an allocation, for example, which investments to put into your investment portfolio, and is typically not making the trades, whereas a stockbroker is someone who is making trades and sometimes getting paid a commission when they make trades for certain stocks or mutual funds.
So an investment advisor is getting paid for the advice, maybe on a fee basis, but when you talk to a stockbroker, they are making a sale, and would you say all the time or most of the time earning a commission?
I would say most of the time earning a commission. I hate to say all the time, ever. There's exceptions, as I find.
And how does one find out the difference? Is this something that has to be disclosed, or should people ask questions about, what's going on in their portfolio? How does someone know the difference between whether the person they're talking to is a broker or an advisor?
I think certainly you should ask the question. I also think it should be disclosed. The way to cover that is to ask the question if it's not. If you're able to make trades, if you're a stockbroker per se, then you're generally a registered representative of a broker-dealer. If you're licensed to make those trades, then that's the title that you're given, registered representative. If you're an investment advisor, you're generally something called a investment advisor representative. So there's different titles.
That is not confusing at all. The alphabet soup and the jargon in this industry is a little overwhelming.
Can be confusing
for clients, I imagine. So part of what you do is help them navigate all of the jargon and the alphabet soup. But beyond that, as I mentioned in the introduction today, part of what has to happen is there has to be some motivation and connection with a person as well. So it's important for a consumer to find out the person who's qualified to give them advice. But what is your advice on how they find someone that connects with them, that can motivate them to make the change that's required?
I'm often asked what I think is the most important factor in choosing a financial planner, and the word that I always use is trust. You have to work with someone that you can trust, someone that you find is trustworthy. They build trust with you. You trust their advice. If you don't trust their advice, you're not likely to take it, and it's probably a waste of time. So trust, I think, is that most important factor.
And how do you think trust is built in a relationship? Does it happen over time, or can it happen immediately?
That's an interesting question. Some people may say that you have to build trust. You don't have it immediately. Some folks may say you start off with trust and perhaps you could lose it. We're in a unique position when we meet with someone, because you have to build trust quickly if you're going to work with them. And I certainly think you can build it over time too by doing what you say you're going to do. So that's certainly a way that you can build trust.
So then it sounds like maybe go with your gut, right? When someone you meet with, you decide whether you're going to hand over what I would imagine is a lot of very personal information in the beginning of a relationship. When you start a relationship with a client for planning, what are all the documents that you're asking for?
I am asking for lots of trusted information. I'm asking for personal information, not just name and address, but birth dates and social security numbers and account numbers. But I'm also asking for account statements, and so it's got your account balances. I'm asking for kids' information and maybe parents' information. I'm asking for copies of insurance policies, copies of estate planning documents, a lot of information that somebody certainly has to have some trust in order to hand over. And one of the things that I left off is when you meet with someone who is referred to you, one of the ways that you have that trust on the front end early on is because you trust the referrer.
That's a great point. That's a great point. And so is that often how you're introduced to new clients, through other clients referring their friends to you?
Absolutely. That is the most common way that I'm introduced to new clients, is existing clients says something and they meet a friend, or they have a family member or something like that who expresses a need, and I'm introduced.
Well, we don't have too much time left, so I do want to cover a couple interesting things about what I understand a CFP can assist with as well.
Okay.
Let's say you have a couple out there that wants to work with a CFP, but they are very different in their approach to money. What is your advice on how two spouses can come together with a CFP professional and achieve their hopes and dreams?
I chuckled because it made me think of a couple, and this is not unique. It's common to have someone come in and they think about money, or they have a different relationship with money than their spouse. Maybe one of them is more of a spender, and maybe one of them is more of a saver. And so, interestingly, one of the characteristics that I think we have to have as a planner is to be a good listener. Sometimes we need to be not just a coach, but maybe a referee.
We'll add another one.
That's another doodad.
So you come in, you listen, you maybe referee. And then how do you implement and talk them through any changes that need to be made if there's resistance?
So I try to find out what's really important. Why are we doing what we want to do? If we want to save money, why? What are we trying to accomplish? And so I find that if you work your way to the why, you can build some commonality, not just with your clients, but the spouses together. They build commonality. Why are we doing this? Okay, that's why we need to do it.
So start with why. I think that's a book. I may be stealing that. I think someone wrote that book. So you start with the why, and you try to get everybody focused on the big picture and their goals.
That's the attempt.
Awesome. So any last words of wisdom for the viewers out there on choosing a financial advisor?
I think it's a great idea to have a financial advisor. I think it's a great idea to seek that counsel. And I think it's a great idea to use someone that has the experience and has the credentials, such as the CFP. I think that's a great place to start.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me,
Joseph. Today, we discussed how the selection of any financial professional delivering advice to your family can be complex to navigate. We learned that working closely with a certified financial planner professional like Joseph, who is guided by strict ethical standards, can help you identify the team of financial professionals that is best for you. That's all the time we have today. Thanks to Joseph Wilder with Inceptum LLC, and thank you for watching. If you'd like to see more shows, follow us on YouTube or Facebook at Germantown Municipal Television. You can also visit our website at gmtvonline.org. Each person's financial situation is unique. Before making any decisions, please speak to a financial professional to see if our discussions today are in your best interest. We'll see you next month. I'm Teresa Bailey, and now you are in the money.